Nigga, nothing less than high power. 5-star dishes, food for thought, bitches. I mean, this shit is Huey Newton going stupid. You can't resist his high power. Throw your hands up for high power. Visions of Martin Luther staring at me. If I see it how he seen it, that will make my parents happy. Sorry, mama, I can't turn the other cheek. They wanna knock me.
All right, we're back. Part 2 here with Eddie Thomas. Had a real emotional moment we were talking about. We just want to let that breathe for a while. Part 2, we want to talk about, I guess, subsequent protests because stuff happened for a long time, but it wasn't as the media portrayed it as like this was. Charlotte was this unruly city that needed the National Guard and tanks. But I'm not going to talk about it. Let Mr. Thomas talk about it. So what were subsequent protests like after the 2 nights of gas in Backton?
You know, it's actually funny because the subsequent protests were exactly like the second night of protests, just prior to the riot police get involved. So, and there wasn't, a major confrontation between riot police and protesters after Wednesday. There were more people out in the street. Of course, National Guard was there. There were protesters. I saw people, from Ferguson came down. People from Chicago. People from Baltimore, New York. People that I knew from Twitter, from doing, social media, doing, protests in other areas. They actually came in to help sustain the protest. They were cool, friendly. Journalists were out there, but it was peaceful. It was a little bit more organized than Tuesday and Wednesday nights. I could tell they had a plan. They did a good job of the areas that they marched uptown. For the most part, a lot of people saw things confined to like the business area uptown, but they actually did a good job of marching uptown to where the apartments are. So you're gonna have to hear us when you're trying to watch TV. When you're trying to ignore us, you're gonna have to hear us. So they did a good job of that. But it was peaceful. It was good.
Now, what do you think is the next step? We make noise, we organize, we rally, we let some frustration off. What is the next concrete thing? Is it boycott? The legislature just passed this bill this summer, it just went into effect. Do you think it's repealable? Do you think the current climate will allow for that? And then on the ground level, I know there's a lot of questions, but what are our day-to-day duties as attorneys to kind of help fix this on the ground level before it gets to this level?
And, a lot of people have asked me in terms of what the next step is. Honestly, I don't know because it's so much work to be done. I would like to see Chief Putney relieved of duty, but the way that the city council has just came out in support of him, I don't think that will happen. And so because of that, I would like to see some members of city council relieved of their duty as well. In the election to come in the future, I'd like to see some young blood run against them and let them know that, if they're not this becomes a cycle. Chief Putney is not willing to hold his officer accountable. City council is not willing to hold him accountable for his mistakes. So now we got to hold city council accountable. And so again, I will hope some young blood run against them in the future. Beyond that, I think the next steps, these court cases that are coming up, there are going to be protesters that were charged with things. I hope our DA's office does a good job of, weeding out things that they can dismiss, and things that they want to go forward with. But there's going to be some cases that they're going to go forward with, and I hope that we can have the community pack the courtroom in support of those protesters who stood up for us.
Do you think the DAs can do more in terms of vetting officers' veracity, and when we have like isolated RPOs with nothing attached or resisting public officer charges? Um, is there something in place that you know of where we're keeping track of officers who may not do the best work or testify truthfully? Do you think that's a start too?
I definitely think that's a start. I definitely think that's a start. I think it's the DA's office can do a much better job in terms of that. I think they can do a much better job in terms of holding their officers accountable on a daily basis. I think at this point in time, from what I've seen, they've done a good job of willing to listen to attorneys. When they bring forward complaints, they'll look at evidence, they'll look at what you have, and if they believe officer is not, truthful in the matter, and the evidence shows that he's not truthful, I think they'll dismiss the case. But unfortunately, they'll dismiss that case. But that same officer may have,
Cases.
Yeah, they got other cases.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do about that? If you ain't believe he was telling the truth in this case and you found the need to dismiss that charge, what are we going to do about future cases? And so that's more a systemic issue, and we're not there yet with the DA's office. I think, again, it's up to attorneys to continue to push them and, push them on this issue. We must do that. But again, I think they do a good job of, in an individual case, if they think an officer is not telling the truth, they'll dismiss it.
Well, one of the things I liked about being in Durham and I also work in Gastonians in smaller counties, you get a lot of familiarity with specific officers. And I haven't been as ingrained in Charlotte, and there's way more officers in Charlotte than Durham.
Yeah.
But is there or someone keeping kind of track of who does what, or do you know about that at this point? I know I was working on that with some attorneys in Durham, but do you know if anyone's working on that in Charlotte?
No, not to my knowledge. I know we at the public defender's office, we try to do that internally, and we try to keep, we try to alert each other to an officer's behavior, something to look out for, something to note if, this is what's going on in my case. Y'all should check this out in your case, or he lied here. You should be looking towards that in your cases. And that's more informal, but I haven't really seen it on a formal basis outside the public defender's office.
And so, why, for those of you who don't know, there's different levels. Can you explain the difference between a public defender, a court-appointed attorney, and private counsel? Because I know clients conflate all three from time to time. And they say, well, public defenders are horrible attorneys and da-da-da-da-da. I feel like they the most experienced, and for lack of better words, it's the court-appointed people who you got to put a question mark with because you're not sure who you're going to get. But elaborate on that for me. Tell them why you know your stuff. I'm trying not to curse. We might have some children watching this, but why you know your stuff, how you know your stuff.
Well, pretty much we're all in the same family. It's just that different relations. So I'll say we're like cousins. So public defenders are court-appointed attorneys. When someone is arrested, you get a court-appointed attorney. So you could get a public defender, and a public defender, what we do is we only take court-appointed cases. So we don't do anything outside of that. It's actually a misdemeanor if we are to engage any other practice outside of what we've been appointed to do. Then there are court-appointed attorneys who are not in the public defender's office. They are on the outside on their own. They will handle either conflict cases. So let's say two individuals are charged with a crime. One person goes to a public defender, the other person get a court-appointed attorney outside of the public defender's office. Or sometimes we're just overloaded and we can't take cases. So let's say you have, all our attorneys one day is just full to capacity with cases that they have. Then, our case assignment will send the case outside of the public defender's office to court-appointed attorneys. And then but court-appointed attorneys can do both court-appointed work and also their own private work. And then you have just private counsel who not necessarily on the court-appointed list, but they still do criminal work or do whatever work, and so you can hire them.
What's the craziest trial you had so far?
The craziest trial?
Or most interesting? Or maybe it might be one, two of the same.
No, I think my first jury trial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that would always stick with me. There was a young man here in Charlotte who was charged with possession of cocaine, selling cocaine, and possession with the intent to sell and distribute cocaine. And it was clear that this was an entrapment case. We don't really argue entrapment a lot, because that's sort of like a difficult burden.
Mm-hmm.
We've argued a couple times though since I've been there. My office has. But this was my first jury trial with my homie Toussaint Romaine, who allowed me to do as much as I wanted to do on that case. This young man was pretty much set up by an undercover officer who he worked at this club. He was set up by them. He thought that this gentleman that he was talking to was somebody that was interested in dating him, getting to know him, but he was actually an undercover officer whose sole goal was to get him to try to deliver cocaine and then arrest him. And that's exactly what happened. The judge in that case did not give us the entrapment instruction. The jury came back and found him guilty of only one offense. We appealed that, and the appeals court ruled in our favor, said that we had did more than enough to meet the burden for the entrapment instruction. So it went back to the court here, and that case ended up being dismissed.
All right, righteous. I like it. And so what'd you do to celebrate that when he came back, or what'd you do after the trial? And then when it came back and they dismissed, did you celebrate?
I didn't celebrate as much. I was happy. Okay. I was happy more than anything. Not because of. I was happy, one, that he was vindicated. He was vindicated. The case was dismissed, and that's what's best for him. But I was also happy because of the job that Toussaint did, the work that I put in, and the fact that the Court of Appeals was able to write such eloquent words in terms of what we did with the case and laying out the case for entrapment, that it's not about me, it's about other people. So in the future, attorneys can go and look at that when they have an entrapment case and try to follow and what we did to try to help their clients as much as possible.
So you're on record in North Carolina history right now.
Here's the funny thing about that, though.
Establishing precedent.
I'm not on record, though. because it was not my case. I wasn't the attorney on record. And Toussaint was the attorney on record. And I think that the clerk maybe didn't put my name there. I don't know what happened, but it sort of lines up that like some of the stuff I said sort of seems like it's coming from Toussaint. But look, man, you can't take that away from me. You can't take that away from me. So I'm just happy that because again, it's not about me. It's not about any recognition that I want, and I'm pretty sure Toussaint feels the same way. It's not about him or any recognition that he gets. It's about the clients and about the fact that one, we were able to get a good result for our client in that individual case, but two, future clients can be helped with that ruling.
Now, let's get to a different part of what you do. So you went to a city hall meeting that they had recently,
Mm-hmm.
and what was the tone and what happened at that meeting? What you see at the city hall meeting?
Oh man, that city hall meeting.
And I think some of this went viral, but can you talk about what you observed from that meeting?
So I went to the city hall meeting. This was when Scott was killed on Tuesday. The protest went all the way up until Sunday.
We just had one this week too.
Yeah. But then that Monday, the next Monday, there was City Hall meeting. Started at 6:30. And actually, they had a rally. They had people at a rally. They had some people at a church, and then some people came to the City Hall meeting, which shows you how stuff was still going on and stuff still is going on. Excuse me. But at City Hall meeting, it was filled. Kicked off at 6:30. The mayor spoke for maybe a couple minutes about other business, but for the most part, she turned it over to the people that had signed up on the list. And what I saw was just raw emotion, raw pain, upset, anger, and just hurt.
And so when that manifested, do you ever feel like you need to vent publicly, or is that something you do privately? When you see somebody else doing that, how does that touch you?
I mean, I'm a human being, so sometimes I vent and I get emotional. For the most part, though, when I'm out, with the people in the street or in City Hall or in the church, for the most part, I try to, support them as much as possible. I didn't speak at that meeting. I wasn't one to lead rallies and lead marches. That's not my job. That's not what I do. My thing is to represent them, in the courtroom, and to speak for them when they don't have a voice, or in a space where their voice is not welcome, because of a degree that I may have, or because of a position that I may have. Someone may be more willing to listen to me than they would them. But when they can speak and when they're given the opportunity to speak, I'd much rather let people speak. So I didn't sign up for anything on the meeting at City Hall. I just wanted to be there to support the people.
Okay. Have you ever had issues going into work after a tragedy that makes the news? Does it affect you to that level? Because for me, and I know this sounds kind of sad to say, but like if there's one shooting, then I can be okay. It's going to affect me. But then if it's like a back-to-back shooting situation, usually that's when I struggle going to work the next day and kind of move slow. Do you have those moments?
Yeah, I do. I have those moments a lot. On social media, especially on Twitter, I'm plugged into people that are doing stuff around the country, similar to, work that I do in the legal space, as well as, protesters, people just in different areas of the struggle. And so I see a lot, I hear a lot, and it can be a lot at times. But the reality of the situation, and actually a sort of blessing and curse, but I mean, I got people in Charlotte I got to represent, so I can't afford to stay down or get down. Even the week of the shooting, there was a moment where I was real low. I called one of my good friends at the office. She didn't pick up, and I called another friend. Well, another friend called me because they were leaving town and they wanted to check on me. Another coworker at the office. I spoke with her and sort of broke down a little bit. Then my other friend called me back, and I broke down with her. And it was difficult, but again, and it took me about 20, 30 minutes, but I had to get back up because I had, I got other people I got to represent. I got clients I got to represent. This is not about me. It's not about my life. I got things I have to do. So when it comes to stuff like this, I get down, but I never stay down because I can't afford to stay down.
That's positive right there. Now, in your personal life, have you experienced profiling in the Charlotte area, the High Point area, or Chapel Hill? Have you feel like you've been targeted often, or I guess do you feel like you went under the radar? Has it been a change since you had locks versus a Caesar or brush cut?
In Charlotte, I really haven't had any issues since I've been in Charlotte, which is kind of crazy, because I welcome the issues now because like the position I'm in, I really don't care. I know enough about law. I know who, I know what. I'm in Charlotte. I'm in court every day. So it's like, I don't fear being pulled over as much. But I haven't had an issue in Charlotte. When I was in Winston and High Point, I got pulled over several times. Especially when I had the dreads, I got pulled over several times. Um, I got profiled with two of my closest friends. When I was in undergrad, we were out downtown Greensboro getting ready to leave. Got pulled over. Actually, we were going through UNCG campus and got pulled over by campus police, and it almost turned bad. But I I have not I haven't had any issues recently, um, and I think that's a blessing because that's a blessing that I'm able to say that.
Okay. And I can say from living in Virginia, I didn't drive much because I was young when I left Virginia. But when I was in Greensboro, man, they used to pull me over all the time
Yeah,
for anything. And then you turn around and there's 8 cops behind you. And you're like, well, this is
yeah,
on the tag? Or if it was that, I mean, I've had guns pulled in my face for, oh, you fit the description of a burglary. And I'm sitting here with my chick on a date.
Greensboro be wild.
I do feel like it's a different level in Greensboro, and I got pulled over quite a bit in Durham too. But in Charlotte, and I did change cars though. I told I have a white man's car. He's a Mustang, so I don't know if that plays a part. I've only had one issue in Charlotte, and it's because there was a gun involved. And I don't think black men are allowed to have guns. Like that's, I own guns, and my lady was with me, and it turned into a bad experience, and no charges were filed. I mean, but I want to get to this and I guess keep it brief on how I say this. But so there are 4 officers involved. 2 of them were black men, and one of them we talked things out, worked it out, and then a white officer came over and said he didn't like my attitude. And I hadn't said anything to him yet. So I said, I mean, I haven't said anything to you, sir. What do you mean? I was talking with this man. Why don't you like my attitude? And he said, well, this, da, 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 da. And we got into an argument. And I said, well, are you not trained to deal with attitude? I'm minding my business and we talking. So I'm using that as an example because when you assert your rights, and I do have a right to own a gun, and I do have a right to carry a gun, is there a way, do you think, that you can assert that? Because knowing your rights is one thing, but exercising them is a completely different thing. Do you think Charlotte's a city where you can exercise your right as a black male gun owner without ending up on the news for the wrong reasons?
Yeah, it is. I think you said it correctly. Like knowing your rights is one thing. Asserting your rights is something different. Prior to this latest round of shootings, we at the public defender's office we did several for the last maybe year and a half. We've been doing a lot of know your rights trainings around the city. Actually, that's when I first met Chief Putney. He came in to observe one of our know your rights trainings, and so he talked to me about that. Since CMPD does things, they actually had a little know your rights card as well that they will hand out at different events. Knowing your rights is very important, but it doesn't matter if you don't exercise your rights, and if you don't exercise them in the right manner. Now, in terms of, man, you're a black man in America. No matter what city you're in, no matter where you're at, the fact that you have, you're exercising your right, your Second Amendment right to bear arms, you know, that's gonna bring you some issues with the police, no matter where you're at. Um, but again, just remain calm. You know, exercise your right. Let them know what's going on, and you know, let them do whatever they got to do in a reasonable time frame, and then you go about your business.
He said it well. I don't know. Some of y'all know me, some of y'all don't. I may not be the most calm of individuals, despite what you see on some of these interviews. If you hang out with me, it's a different
I ain't
story.
that calm either. So, but yeah,
But I'm glad that my lady was there to calm me down, to kind of mediate, even though, you know, he said, well, I don't have to deal with attitude. I don't have to deal with such and such. And
you were more calm about that than I would have been.
oh, there's more to the story. We're not going to put that on there. But I do think that there has to be some implicit understanding by officers that if you're going to impede someone's freedom and deal with them as far as whether there's charges coming or not, that people don't necessarily want to deal with you when you think that they're the suspect.
Yeah.
And they may not be quote unquote polite, especially if you're not approaching them with respect. Because me and the other gentleman were having a great conversation until this gentleman came and said he didn't like my attitude. But on another note, what are some things you want to leave the audience with, and how can they get in contact with you? What's your Twitter? Are you on Facebook? Do you want to be found? So it sounds like you're active on Twitter, but do you want to keep a low profile, or how can people get in touch with Eddie Thomas?
I'm on Facebook.
All right.
I think it's Eddie Thomas Jr. on Facebook. Or just Eddie Thomas on Facebook. I think my profile closed, so you have to add me. I'm on Twitter.
You just be tweeting random stuff, or you dropping jewels?
I mean, a little bit of both.
Okay.
I don't want people to necessarily follow me if they want to. I'm not here to get Twitter followers. My Twitter handle is so it's at @doctaught_me. So DOCTAUGHTME.
Okay.
So I used to have a different Twitter handle, but I changed that. And that's a special nod to my professor at Winston State, Dr. Larry Little, who was a Black Panther member, one of the founding members of the Black Panther Party in Winston-Salem. Man, everything that I am in terms of like social justice awareness issues, and not being afraid to stand up to the system and not being afraid to speak my mind on issues, that came from him. He had such a tremendous impact on my life. And so when I was thinking about just Twitter handles, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give a shout out to my man, Dr. Larry Little. And Dr. Little is amazing. If anybody ever passed through Winston State, especially in the last decade or two, knows him. If you're in Winston, you know him because he's so active in the community. And so he's responsible for me. Don Curitin, Judge Curitin knows him. Judge Hands knows him. A lot of people know him. He's an amazing guy. What did you ask me?
Well, any last thoughts? If you want to be, people who might want to be an attorney, or they want to get involved in protesting, or what I'm saying, we can have you back, because definitely, I don't want it to be just about the social justice. He's multi-dimensional, folks. Like it's a hot button issues that we need to talk about here in Charlotte in this Rising Up series. But any last words for the people?
Man, just resist. We're in a time period where people are speaking back, and they're putting a lot on the line by speaking back, by talking back, by standing up, by not accepting the status quo. And I just encourage people not to stand on the sideline. If your city, you're having a protest, go join that protest, man. If you don't want to join that protest, go and maybe donate to, you know, the bail fund, the jail fund. If you don't have the money to do that,
come to the courtroom on their court dates.
Exactly. Show up there. Create a sign. You know, just create a Facebook status. Don't be afraid to talk to your coworkers at work about issues. Man, jury duty.
Gotta do it.
Jury duty, especially if you're a minority. We need you on the jury. You understand our clients, black or white. You understand the criminal justice system in a way that other people may not. You understand just fundamental, you know, the fundamental unfairness of the system. We need you on jury duty. So there's a lot of ways that you can stand up and resist the system as is. So I'll just encourage people to resist.
All right. As always, Freedmen Fridays. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with you next Friday.
I say open the door, let me in. Teach us all, preach us in. Turn the cheek, let it slide. Give me 5 on the black hand side. The black hand side. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, black hand side. Black hand side. Oh, oh, oh. The black hand side.
Give me 5 on the black hand side. Can tell you what I see through the black man's eyes. Fly chick in a Cadillac, a black man ride. But every different day, a different black man died.